Good evening, esteemed guests. That's all of you. My name is Michael Fenderson. I'm the French teacher here, grades 1 through 8, and chair of the College of Teachers this year. And it is my great honor to welcome everyone here tonight to this dedication ceremony at Maine Coast Waldorf School. I applaud you for coming. I feel that we're all lucky to be here to celebrate this momentous night. We are here in Maracaineag Hall this evening and will not be long before we'll head out on our tours for the high school and the other fabulous spaces that we have to show you if you haven't seen them already. Yesterday morning was a lot of fun around here. We thank the builders of these wonderful spaces that we have. We paraded around them, we plied them with coffee and donuts. The kids too were very interested in the donuts. And we sang to them, and I hope we made them feel that they have made us all feel very proud of these new additions to the school. We're so thankful of the job that all of the builders have done and everybody that's participated. As a member of the faculty, it is impossible to thank all of the individuals. Some of the pictures are around the halls here, and really, if you take a look tonight and you read some of what's written below them, and I invite you to do that. It is, I have to say, it's like a hall of fame to me and to others who have been watching this project come to fruition. We in no way can thank enough the individuals and truly all of you who have helped this come to the point that we're at today. There's just no way. This evening, I and my colleagues look forward to joining this whole community as we express our deepest gratitude to all of these individuals who, across the many facets of this project, have led to this milestone in our school's journey. As this mammoth undertaking comes to the finish line now, there is a complexity I think that we all understand that's really engulfed all of us for now a few years. And that complexity we're hoping will die away just a little bit and will return to children's voices and less the hum of machines. Although I must say that everybody's been so careful to try to make this a wonderful marriage, this project and an ongoing school day. The acronyms, I just want to say, will get easier too. Here in the school, we've lived by acronyms such as CC, Capital Campaign, CPC, the Campus Planning Committee, TDC, EGC, and on and on. I just want to get back to TLC, which is really the hallmark of this school. But I must say, we've never really left TLC behind. It's been in every bit of the work that's gone on through all of these committees, and I'm just so happy to say that we can celebrate the work of those committees tonight. I want to introduce now Tay Beach, or call Tay Beach up to the stage. Tay and I have been working closely on the board together, on EGC together. Just about every committee and acronym I mentioned, Tay Beach has been a part of. Pass the microphone to our favorite MC, Tay Beach.
I hate these things worse. I don't like these things either. Can everybody hear me if I use my... You can, yes? Excellent. So, thank you, Michael. I appreciate that lovely introduction. You know, Michael's right. Tonight is as much a dedication as it is about TLC, and really the middle part of TLC, and that is the love. All of you deserve love. Everyone here who you're going to hear thank this evening deserves love. This entire thing doesn't happen without love. It doesn't happen without passion, and it doesn't happen without a community who is so deeply in love with everything that it does and we do and that this wonderful faculty and College of Teachers does. And it's incredible, and I want everyone here, when they have the opportunity, when you go and look at the spaces, hug other people. Hug the teacher you haven't seen in a while, hug your kid's teacher, hug each other, hug a high school student, they love it. So do that, because tonight's about the love. So I'm just going to introduce, I think I'm turning it back over to Michael. This part is on behalf of the Board of Directors, on behalf of Susan Stark, President of the Board, who unfortunately could not be here this evening. But I'm here to welcome you on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Maine Coast Waldorf School, because, again, we serve with love on behalf of the love that you give to us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael and a series of great speakers. So again, thank you all for spending the Friday evening before you rest of your plans with us. Thank you.
It's my great pleasure to call to the stage now a man who really needs no introduction to most of us here. The high schoolers refer to him very in kind ways as Captain Waldorf. My two children had Douglas Gerwin as their teacher. He is an honored teacher here in the high school, often doing guest blocks. And he is the director of the Center for Anthroposophy in Wilton, New Hampshire. He is a longtime friend of the school, a mentor for this school. Many of you have heard him speak on a number of occasions if you've been around here for any length of time. And so we're delighted to have Douglas be here tonight, along with so many other old friends and friendly faces. Douglas.
So, good evening. And here I am as mentor to the high school, and so I can say that as mentor to this initiative, I was privileged in 2007 to address the opening of your new venture in the former high school site. I was allowed to give an oration of main lesson standing, which in terms of Waldorf currency means I was allowed to speak for about 90 minutes. Today, exactly 1 decade later, I've been asked to contain my remarks to no more than 10 minutes, which in terms of stock market currency would represent a devaluation of about 89%. That's something worth little more than a junk bond in Russian rubles. But still, I am very, very happy to be here, and I come with a combination of embarrassment, relief, and gratitude. Embarrassment at all the advice I gave the high school in which they have not taken. Relief they did not take it. And of course gratitude that they invited me nonetheless to come speak to them once again. So, at a time I want to say of dwindling enrollment in independent schools generally on this continent, your high school has grown this year to a record, you see it here, a record of 65 students. And that's not counting the foreign students who will bring that number to over 70. But nonetheless, despite even your relatively modest size compared to other independent schools, this high school here, this high school community, has distinguished itself already by having award-winning poets, both faculty and student, award-winning cross-country and ski teams on this stage, I assume. And I have to say, every institute of higher learning must be envious of the fact that you have an office manager by the name of Susan Sontag. In the spirit of efficiency, I will start with a brief poem by one of your celebrated Maine poets, and it's not David Sloan, but rather it is someone else known to you as E.B. White, who wrote once a poem about a spider. Now this is going to be interesting because I need now 3 hands. The spider, dropping down from twig unwinds the thread of her devising, a thin, premeditated rig to use in rising. And all the journey down through space in cool descent and loyal-hearted, she builds a ladder to the place from which she started. Thus you, high school, thus you, gone forth as spiders do, in spider's web, a truth discerning, attached one silken strand to you, the lower school, for your returning. What might be that silken strand that you have spun these many years while preparing to, as they say, return home to this campus? I will return to that question in just a moment, but I have something else I need to do first. As you may know, only 1 in 4 Waldorf schools on this continent can lay claim to having its own high school. There are some 40 Waldorf high schools in all, that's it for North America. And yet, I want to say, it was always the plan for Waldorf education to span kindergarten through 12th grade, starting as it was with the very first Waldorf school, which opened then in 1919, barely at the end of World War I, in the southern German town of Stuttgart. K through 12 was always the plan. Today, I want to say there are something like 1,100 Waldorf schools, elementary schools, in 60 and more countries. That is to say, a number that you will include now in all of your literature when you describe Waldorf education. You see, that number can also be doubled if you throw in those freestanding kindergartens, so roughly then over 2,000 institutions can claim the name Waldorf around the globe. By my count, there are some Waldorf schools in each of the 24 time zones around the globe, except one time zone where there is no land. And you can say also that Waldorf education is now practiced on all continents except for Antarctica, where there are, of course, no children. In short, your high school, barely a decade old, belongs to a very quick and expanding, wide-ranging web, shall we say, a network of independent schools stretching around the entire globe. Now, at the end of this poem that I just read to you, I made reference and posed a question about the nature of this silken thread that has kept your high school connected, somewhat loosely of course, though connected by buses, connected to the whole body of the community of the school. My question then is, what is this thread that binds a Waldorf elementary, also kindergarten and high school together? In essence, I'd like to suggest to you that this silken thread is a shared understanding of how a human being unfolds in 3 distinct phases, like a plant, you might say, from kindergarten leaf to lower school blossom and then to high school fruit. In that sense, today we could say we are celebrating a kind of harvest festival in which the first fruit of the education is being brought back to the original orchard here, the original orchard, where at least in some cases this fruit was first planted and cultivated. Now, beyond the obvious elements of soil and water, what is needed for a fruit to ripen? I'd like to suggest to you briefly, and that's the time I have, suggest to you 4 things. And those of you who practice horticulture of plants will know these 4 elements as light, warmth, space, and time to mature. And those of you engaged in the horticultural aspect of cultivating adolescence, whether in your high school or in your home life, you might know these 4 elements by different but related names. You might know these elements of ripening as having to do with the light, that is, the light of intellectual awakening, the warmth, but now the warmth of human encounter, but also the breadth of, shall we say, psychological space, in which a student can explore new inner landscapes of soul and of spirit. And yes, also I would say that 4th element now, the expanse of time, but time in the sense of the time needed to undertake such inner exploration. Now, all of these four elements, as you may see yourself in a few minutes, all of these four elements, so crucial to the maturing of fruit or the maturing of a human being, all these elements, I would suggest to you, are matched in generous measure in your new high school building, even in its physical attributes. Think or look only at its light, the light of these floor-to-ceiling windows and soaring skylights. Think of the warmth of that building, not only in terms of the solar panels on the top of it, but also the warmth that you feel every time you walk up and down the staircase and grab that wonderfully warm wood of the marble staircase railing. And space. Boy, what spaces you have there. Extraordinary spaces, 10-foot high ceilings, great for learning math. Math happens there. But also then those huge and swirling walls and rising ceilings to give you this grand space above the intellectual awakening head. And of course, yes, time also. This building is incredibly efficient. I did a test this afternoon. I could get from one extreme of the building to the other in a commuting time of 45 seconds. That's a very time-conscious building. You have it all. So my wish for the school is that these gifts of the building, the gifts of light, of warmth, of space, and of time, may fortify and fructify long and lasting generations of young women and men as they prepare themselves for life as maturing adults. For let us remember, and surely we will remember, come graduation next June, barely 8 months away, that there remains yet one more stage of development beyond mature fruit. And that is the stage of seed, in which all that has been cultivated during the time from leaf to blossom and from blossom to fruit is gathered up in an almost invisible pellet of energy from which can originate something entirely new at some future time. So, to that ultimate purpose, that future time, may this building, along with those who teach in it and those who learn in it, may this building be consecrated. To the high school I say, welcome home to the orchard. And to the rest of the school community I say, enjoy the rich harvest. Congratulations.
Good evening. In case you don't know me, I'm David Sloan. I hate using microphones and I hate following Douglas Gerwin. With that aside, welcome to all of you. Welcome parents and friends. Welcome alumni from American East / Maine Coast Waldorf School, to colleagues past and present, and of course to current students. I wonder if any of you can imagine how improbable this night seems. When you think back, well, when the high school was just a twinkle in the eyes of the founding teachers of American East 30-some years ago, or 17 years ago nearly, when a small group of far-sighted parents and teachers decided to actively begin planning for a high school sometime in the indeterminate future, or even 11 years ago. So it was 11 years ago, in the fall of 2007, when we opened our doors to 15 intrepid 9th and 10th graders out at Pineland. And I have to tell you that I was a little awestruck that we actually had convinced these families to join our fledgling initiative, which hitherto hadn't even existed except on paper and in the imaginations of a few dreamers. At that time, all we had to offer really was a then cavernous second floor of Gray Hall, and a bare bones program that included classes in African drum making and cooking, culinary arts, sorry, and auto repair. And we had this dream, we had this pipe dream that someday we would somehow attract this impossibly huge number of students. And at that time, the magic number for our pipe dream was 60. But then, just last week, I was going through some papers and I found the very first brochure that we sent out to the public way back in 2006, before the high school even existed. And I'd like to share a little excerpt from that brochure. If you recognize this tender teenage stage of life as an authentic, often painful search for self, if you see how artistic experiential education can nourish adolescent souls, if you believe that young people today yearn to align themselves with the loftiest of ideals and then strive to live them, you may appreciate what Maracaine's Waldorf High School can offer today's teenagers. And after I read that, I said, wow, that was pretty well expressed. No wonder we outgrew what we lovingly began to think of as our own personal tiny house out there at Pineland, and that we exceeded our wildest pipe dreams. And now, as Mr. Gerwin has already pointed out, here is the latest edition, the latest and fullest edition of Maine Coast Waldorf High School. These 65 motivated, energetic, mature, attentive, confident young people. How did this wonderful dream come true? I don't want to sound like one of those gushy Academy Award recipients who go on and on, thanking everyone in the room for their love and support before the music starts to tell them to wrap it up. Thank you. But there is a little something Hollywood-ish about this dream coming true. Like an Academy Award-winning film, this high school simply would not have been built without the creative and collaborative efforts of so many of you in this room. So while individual thank yous are going to come a little later, I want to add my own deep appreciation. First, to Douglas Gerwin, who was a wise and reassuring mentor, even though we didn't often listen to his advice. And I also want to appreciate all of those courageous souls who 30 plus years ago took that leap into the unknown. And again, 17 years ago. And again, 11 years ago. And even, I would say, in the last couple of years when we began this amazing capital campaign and the building projects that we've nearly finished. It takes a certain type of courage to pursue your dreams so devotedly that they actually materialize. I, at this moment, am sorely tempted to break into song, but I have been advised, actually I've been begged, not to share my rendition of Jiminy Cricket's When You Wish Upon a Star. So I guess we should thank my personal censor as well for sparing you that misery. Instead, I would like to introduce a graduate from the class of 2014. I believe he is the first alum to serve on our board of trustees, and he was a stalwart member of our now defunct basketball team. May it rest in peace. Clearly, Douglas and I were just the warm-up acts for the headliner. Would you please welcome Joe Newland to the stage?
Use this. So thank you for the introduction. I didn't really want to introduce myself, so that's very helpful. So it's hard for me to express how happy I am to be here today. I think I was asked to speak to give some insight into what this event means to me as a former student, especially because I was involved. I was on the board when we decided to move the high school and change the name and whatnot. But perhaps I was asked to speak because they knew I'd show up anyways, and they didn't want me to talk in the back, but you know, I never know. So regardless, I'll take the minutes I have and do my best to impart on all of you a few words that will hopefully ring true with the sentiments we share in common on a day like today. So to provide a glimpse into my feelings toward this whole event, I think it's necessary to reflect a moment on my time at the Maine Coast Waldorf School. And you should be happy I didn't say American Eagle. That's what it was in my time. So apart from a couple brief periods in elementary school and high school, my entire education occurred here. When I think back on all those years, I sometimes try to dissect why this school holds such a place of reverence in my heart. And I tick through the important moments. My role in the second grade play as the little gray man. It was stirring, I assure you. The enormous treehouse my class built in the 4th grade. Endless recesses playing touch football on that field right there. And hours working with my hands to shape freshly cut trees into works of functional art. All the while, copious amounts of trouble with Mr. Thurl for disrupting the class. Whatever that meant. So the memories are nearly endless, but there's one in particular that I want to focus on. In 9th grade, I followed my brother's footsteps and attended Waynfleet instead of the Nason High School. It was during that year that I realized how important this school was to me, and it was broader than that. I realized how important this community was to me, regardless of how good any other school could be, or even given the ability to play soccer and basketball. To me, all of those were tinged with a dull gray, without what I have come to see as the most important part of my Waldorf experience. And that is you. It's the students, it's the teachers, the parents, and the alumni that constitute the Maine Coast community. When I returned in 10th grade, I was welcomed with open arms. And while our basketball team, yes, we had one of those, as Mr. Sloan mentioned, won only 2 games during my next 3 years here. One was against the faculty. That's not a joke. My life was full of color again. So I see this project, bringing the high school to this campus and expanding upon the community hall, as nothing short of imperative to maintaining and continuing to expand the ties between students and teachers, teachers and parents and parents, that weave together and create a culture worth living in. Bringing the high school to this campus connects the young and the old. The additions to Community Hall expressly provide space to allow community members to mingle and bond with one another. And while it was the community that brought me back and sustained me through the high school, I'm beyond excited to see what the future holds now that the school is won. Thank you all for listening to me ramble, and I sincerely apologize for going over my allotted time, but as Susan Sontag, my personal tardy parole officer in high school, will tell you, punctuality was never my strong suit.
Thank you, Joe. That was fantastic. So, you guys, this is actually a really good lesson. Just surround yourself with really talented, smart people. and you can kind of like bask in the glow and not really do anything. So with that in mind, I want to invite up Lynn Espy and Lisa Lucas, my co-chair, to do this next bit. We're going to try to not make this the world's longest Oscar speech, where we thank everyone, but we need to thank everyone. And so we're going to try to inject a little character and humor in it. But what I do want to do is, it's very important on a night like tonight where we are dedicating these new buildings and this beautiful new campus, to recognize those individuals, those professionals, the companies, and the groups, and the parent volunteers. Right? Well, I wish this would help, but it won't. Anyway, who made this all possible? So with that, if you would just bear with me, I'm going to try to do this as quick as I possibly can. But I'm going to ask these people up here in their groups. I'm going to ask them to start to my right, their left if they're coming up. And I'm going to ask them to kind of stand together. And so here we go. So first I want to welcome up to stage Peter Warren and his team from Warren Construction Group. And just so everybody knows, excuse me, Dave Merrill could not be here tonight. It's important for me to mention that. And we're also, instead of me giving a rousing, memorable speech about every single person who walks up here, we're just going to get everybody up on stage at once. So I just don't want anyone to think, including the recipients of our thanks, to think that we're passing them over, forgetting them. This is very intentional, so we get out of here. All right. Next, Kaplan Thompson Architects, Bill Kaplan and his team. We're also the high school architects, the Bryburn team, if they could come up as well. Very Bryburn. All right, now we're going to do general groups. I want to invite up, we had many people who worked on the grounds and trails at the school, everything from the parking lots to the trails in the back. And so if you're out there and you had a part in that, we actually want to welcome you up in a very nondescript way up to the stage. So if you could please, if you had anything and if you want to stay there and just raise your hand, that's cool too. And we're also going to involve all the people who worked on the infrastructure, engineering, heating, plumbing, electrical, roofing, and installation. So anything that was involved in those general groups, we want to give you a big thank you, and we also want you to come to the stage. In fairness, I didn't say the guy who did all of it. Next, I want to introduce up the stage Ben Pearson and the Campus Planning Committee. Ben Pearson, Mandy Morrill, Rosemary Burwell, David Sloan, Christine Sloan, John Olson, Steve Constantino, and Brian Kessler. So if any of you are out there, we would next I want to have up the high school building committee. Amy Eshu and her team of Sarah Staples, the Aesthetics Committee come up with Lisa Bossi, also Johanna Flaff, Kelly Barham, and Ananda Kamen. Next, if we could have the Finance Committee come up. This would be Christine Byrne, Barbara Guffin, Melissa Hoy, Vito Courtney, Derek Blackburn, Ben Tupper, and Tom Rowe. Next, if I could have the Capital Campaign Cabinet come up. You're here. Christina Farmoral, David Barham, Melissa Walker, Dana Anderson, Victoria Stephanakis, Mark Ruggiero, Lynn Espy, who's already up here, Mary Sylvester, who could not make it tonight, Gina Sawin, Susan Stark, Stacy Hamilton Waldron, Michael Stephanakis, Jeannie Madsen, Melissa Hoy, Maisie Kaplan, and Sarah Pierce. And then the last group I want to come up here are people who are involved in the Capital Campaign Planning Committee, as well as other individuals in our volunteer community who really helped shape the form that this took. So if I could please have up Katie Pulsifer, Dita Burgess, Sean Fitzpatrick, Sarah Barmby, Lynn Thurles, Sarah Pierce again, and Jess Moore. So as you heard, a lot of people couldn't be here tonight. And this is just really the tip of the iceberg. So many of the people here on stage represent so many other people who are part of their companies, who are part of their committees, who are part of this committee, who all lent a hand. And so of those of you who are up here, if I could have you either step forward or raise your hand. Those of you who, everyone up here is a professional. But for those of you who like Warren construction, who were the professionals on this project who we brought in to help us create this lovely and amazing campus. If you could just kind of raise your hand. So kind of the non-parent. So the reason I'm having them do that is not just so that you can all see them and know who they are. It's very important that everyone in this audience and all the people who you tell about this lovely evening know that these folks not only did incredible work that you're going to be able to touch and feel and walk through, but these people gave up time, they gave up overtime, they made charitable contributions along the way. They did all of this work, as one person who went to the school who said, I cannot believe you got that school for that amount of money. And that's because of these folks. They gave and gave and gave to the point where it was almost embarrassing. And so I, on behalf of not only the school and the board of directors and the campaign team, when we raised $4.3 million, when we had a $6.3 million project, I can assure you that had they charged us for all the work that they did, it would have been significantly more. So I just wanted to thank them. And so the rest of you, I want you to step forward and raise your hands, because the rest and the remainder of the people up here on stage were all faculty and parent volunteers. And every single one of these people gave so much time and talent that if we ever tried to calculate it and monetize it, I assure you this project would have cost at least twice what it cost in terms of their time and effort. And so we really wouldn't have what we have without their efforts. And so as a collective whole, I want us all to recognize that. Now, in order to drive, and it's a great general point, but what I really want to do is I want to drive that point home to some of the folks that are up here. And I can do this, in fairness, to all of these folks and some of you who I know didn't come up, and I see you, but I want to raise some specific examples just because it's very important to me knowing how hard all of these people work for all of us. To give a couple quick examples. Ben Pearson, if Ben could raise his hand for those of you who don't know Ben. With the exception of the fundraising, Ben ran it all. And Ben's been running it. Ben's daughters last left this school in 2000 and 2002 respectively. His wife stopped working here 3 years ago. Ben has every reason to be in retirement and never step foot again. Yet he has spent so many hours organizing, helping, lending a hand, and being there when all of us needed it, that there's no amount of gratitude that can ever express on behalf of all of us what this man has meant to this school and this project. And so it's very important that you stand for this man right now. Exactly what he wanted, folks, so thank you. I might also have you stand for this next person. Amy Eshu, who ran the high school project and managed the entirety of the high school project from both volunteer and made sure that everything ran on time. And as Peter and Harry and everyone on that end of the stage can attest to, when they said they ran it on time, we got them started off about 6 months late. And so they made that happen in a time that I don't think any building has probably ever come up that fast. And so Amy was really the one who oversaw our side of that and who shepherded that entire project and took phone calls upon phone calls and more emails than any human being should ever have to read during the summer. And I want us all to also recognize her work. So lastly, before I get kicked out of here and say a couple things, there's also, I just want to raise a couple other quick examples of people who, just the kind of things that go into making this. Lisa Bossi, who's up here on behalf of Aesthetics, she took time over the summer with her 2 daughters to make sure that all of the furniture matched that we had picked out and spent countless hours doing things like looking at furniture samples. Sarah Pierce, who also has no reason to come to these things anymore. She sat up and did all of the gifts. She's spent countless hours working with Lynn, quietly in an office, not asking for any thank yous, not even wanting to probably know that she's doing it, and she has, because it's important that that type of parent support. She ran capital campaigns in her time when her kids were here. She has earned, like so many of these people on stage, the ability to only come here to get hugs. And yet she puts in hours. She showed up to help us rip apart the porch that we're going to turn into cross-country sheds. That's the kind of love that this place engenders, and that's the kind of people it takes to make these projects work. Throw a shout out, and this is being recorded, which is good for me. To all the spouses, my last right now, but to all the spouses who put up with us, who allowed us to do this, who took the kids to practices and cooked dinners and made lunches and just allowed us to go to meetings after meetings after meetings after meetings after meetings, and rarely said boo, and didn't kill any of us. A lot of you are out there in the audience, and again, we couldn't have done this without your support, and you're not up here on stage, but you should be. So to all the spouses who made this all possible, thank you. My last act, mercifully, before I turn this over, is to thank. So, in the sporting community, people have statues built outside of new buildings. And they get that because they scored a bunch of points or they did something and won a couple championships. Lynn Espy deserves a statue outside of every building in this city. Which would be easy to do because it couldn't happen. But thankfully for me, and for all of us, Lynn's dedication and what Lynn does on a daily basis has made all of this possible. And I'm not just saying that. Lynn, in her ability to reach out to every single one of us, to deal with meetings with people like me, which is not easy, it's not only incredible in a speech that deserves hyperbole, it's not hyperbole to say that Lynn really has been the reason that we're here tonight. It's the reason that this worked. It's the reason that we raised $4.3 million. It's the reason that we continue to raise money and do it successfully, and it's the reason that everyone who she comes in contact with has a smile on their face, and despite every reason to sometimes go, really, I gotta give more, continues to give more. And so I want to bring Lynn up because Lynn's going to say a couple words, but really, Lynn is not just an incredible coworker. I consider her one of my closest friends, and I just want to say thank you. The other reason Lynn's amazing is because she reminds me when I forget things. We worked all morning on this next bit, too. I am the worst. All right, so before I turn it over to Lynn, we have handed each of these groups a sign, and I'm going to ask them in order. So during this project, all of them thought certain things about the project, about the school, and they never really had an opportunity to get in front of all of you and say the things that they were thinking. And so we wanted to provide them this one opportunity in summation, much like we do at the wildflower ceremony, to sum up the very thing that they have accomplished or they thought about the project. So sorry, at the end, I'm going to have you go, Peter, and hold up your sign, please, on behalf of the construction. And for those of you, it says I Heart Fire Marshal's Office. Next, the architects, if you could hold up your sign, please. Next, Brian, on behalf of all of the systems engineers, if you could hold up the sign, please. Nothing to see. Ben Pearson, on behalf of Campus Planning Committee. Mandy, and I believe you were given a sign as well. High School Building Committee. Aesthetics? Finance. The campaign cabinet. And the Capital Campaign Planning Committee. And then as I turn it over to Lynn and Lisa, I want them to hold up the sign that kind of exemplifies.
Well, because I'm short and we're short on time, and because I couldn't possibly say thank you as eloquently as all the people before me have, I am speechless with gratitude to everybody out there. There are people sitting in this audience who started the school 34 years ago. There are people who started the bridge school. There are people who started the first high school Pineland. Way before that, there are people who were the very first teacher before we even had a first class. And you know who you are, and you know how much, I hope you know how much we appreciate what you did for us. And I think on behalf of everyone up here, we hope that we have made you proud about what we have done to the campus and for this community, because having you here makes us proud. Because we are running late on time, I'm going to keep this way shorter than it should be, but I just want to comment, having been here for a little while, working with Tay Beach and Lisa Lucas has been an absolute joy. They were the co-chairs of this cabinet, the Capital Campaign Committee, we call it cabinet. They gathered an incredible group of people. Every meeting was a thrill. You know, sometimes unexpected things happened. Sometimes we took it in different directions, but it was such fun to be a part of it. And I think that the reason that people continue to give forever and ever is because the community here can make hard work fun. And I am so grateful to Tay and Lisa, who we're going to keep them on forever. They don't actually get a break. We'll invent a new name for the committee, but Tay had the vision, and as you can see, he is a natural MC. If you want to read anything about them, their personal lives, it's written on these posters. Please do read those. But Tay had the vision and the leadership skills to take us forward. And Lisa was the constant, behind the scenes, quiet, solid, calm, confidence builder. She could walk any of us through anything. And as I said, I could go on and on about both of them, but they have just been fantastic, and we all owe them all, both of them, a round of applause. Before you go to see the high school, this is how the rest of the evening is going to go. Before I say that, I want to thank Douglas Gerwin and Joe Newland and David Sloan for speaking and enlightening us about our history and our future. Thank you. I'm going to invite all of you good people to exit off the stage so that we can hear the high school chorus sing. And I'd like to introduce, while they're walking off, I'd like to introduce our wonderful chorus teacher, Nancy Roderick, and piano accompanist, Katie Stetson. When they finish their song, we're going to ask you to stay seated or still. They are going to exit down the center and lead us over to the high school. For those of you who are willing to stay a little longer and go see the high school building, I think it's a treat if you haven't seen it yet. And thank you again so much for coming tonight.